Welcome all. Welcome to our Peptides 101 class. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Lynn Morales. I'm a naturopath here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And we are here to share with you an exciting topic called Peptides 101. Now, some of you are very sharp. You may be beyond Peptides 101, but we are going to cover the basics. We're going to do more than just teach you how to say peptides, how to spell them. We're going to teach you a few things, and then we do plan to do some building on this going forward. So just want to thank all of you again for being a part here. And basically over the next 45 minutes or so, I'm going to give you a plain language understanding of peptides. There's no chemistry degree required. That's not my gig. We're going to focus on what people actually want out of these. Basically healing, less pain, better gut health, intimacy, rather than the science class stuff. That's where we're going to go today. So I'm going to start with, that question that probably brought a lot of you here. What if you could help your body heal and work better using something it already makes on its own? Now, that's an interesting question, something that it already makes on its own. So we're going to talk about that. But that is the promise of peptides. And basically, I want to be upfront with you from the very beginning. This is a really exciting topic, but it's also new. And so there's a lot of us still learning, and even the scientists are still learning because this is not an easy topic. But yet there's, definitely research going on, and there, new advancements are coming up all the time. So before we dive in too much, I want to set expectations. Again, peptides are one of the most promising things happening in wellness right now. They're new. Now they've actually been around, right? But we've discovered them, so that makes them new. And so research is catching up. So my job is to give you an honest picture of what that looks like so that you can ask good questions for yourself. So keep that in mind as we go forward. So what exactly is a peptide? So the simplest way you could say it is a peptide's a tiny natural signal. Your body already makes thousands of them every single day. And that's how your cells talk to each other. That's how they get things done. And so the peptides people are the peptides that people take are just borrowed versions of what your body's already creating or already making. And so basically, they speak the body's language, but they have a purpose. So let's ask this simple question. So if the body already has peptides, right, then why do we need more? Or why can't our own body's peptides take care of our own health needs? Well, let me explain it a little bit. So let's start with some small numbers, like 191 amino acids are basically chained together, and that makes something called human growth hormone. So what is human growth hormone? Let's talk that through. Human growth hormone is what helps you grow your body. And so there was a test that we sometimes would do in the office. It was an assessment, and it would actually tell people their human growth hormone levels or where they might be based on how they answered a questionnaire. Now, 9 out of 10 times, we could help that human growth hormone score look better by supporting people with their diet. So the bottom line is sometimes we aren't able to create our own peptides because our diet's not so great. It could be your diet's not too bad, but your digestion really stinks. Okay. And so over the course of time, standard medical doctors, generally your primary care will say, hey, your human growth hormone's declining. That's okay. It just declines with age. Well, that's true. But what also declines with age is our food supply has been declining for many years. Our habits have been declining for many years, right? Those are actually a few other things that are helping the human growth hormone to decline. And so generally speaking, if you can get your body moving in the right direction, if you can fix your digestion, generally speaking, you're going to actually start getting your human growth hormone to go in the right way. Now let's talk through again the 191 amino acids. What are those? 191 amino acids are nothing more than proteins, right? And proteins come from, beef and chicken and turkey and, some legumes, things like that, right? But that's where we get our protein from. That's what an amino acid is. So when you chain together amino acids, that's what makes a peptide. And so it could be many amino acids chained together that help create a peptide. And so bottom line is, if we can get your digestion moving in the right direction, generally speaking, you're going to start kind of rebuilding some of those peptides in your own body. The problem is many people don't know how to do that. And so one of the things we do is we often will go to the peptide route or recommend that to people because we have to bypass digestion. And this is one of the ways that you can do it. And so generally speaking, peptides are usually injected with an itty bitty little needle. And so I hope I didn't confuse things too much, but I just want you to understand that we're going to talk about these little tiny signals, but I think it made sense to talk about also why is it that if a peptide is just creating a signal that my body can already create on its own, then why am I not creating it? And usually it's because you've gotten older, you've gotten slack. It's something we talk about. Your body used up a lot of important building blocks over the years to grow your body from a little baby into a big person. And then you generally have a lot less supply at the rest of your life to go through and do repairs from injuries, from pickleball, or repairs from surgeries or things like that. So let me move on and let's continue to talk a little bit more about these little signals. So if you're going to remember one thing from tonight, because the last thing sounded a little sciencey, but one thing from tonight, just think of a peptide as like a text message. It's short little messages. It's short, clear messages that's signaling to your body to do a very specific thing. And it shouldn't do anything else but the very specific thing that it's designed to do. So hold that picture because that's going to be helpful when you understand that when we change the text message, right, we send a different signal to a different part of the body. And so when we talked about the human growth hormone, those 191 amino acids that I talked about, smarter people than me were able to go through that 191 on that human growth hormone, pictures like a big long chain. And what they were able to do is figure out that, hey, this little section is for skin and hair and nails. And this section is for mood. And this section is for bones and ligaments and tendons. And this section is for inflammation. And so that's why there's so many different little text messages or so many different little signals that end up happening with this thing we call peptides. So basically the single most important idea in the class, right? Different message, different result. And so if you change the message that you send, then you change what the body does next. And so healing, calming, inflammation, desire, they're all just different text messages that are going to different cells around the body. So just keep that in mind. So let's get to like the heart now of what we're here to talk about. So what people actually use as peptides for. So I'm going to walk through, and the goal is not chemistry. The goal is to give you some information as to what can a peptide do for you, and how can it support yourself or other loved ones. So for each one, you want to ask yourself, what is this? What do I want out of this? What is my goal? Why was I on this call? What do I need to know? What's the messaging that my body needs? And so the most common reason that people actually use peptides is for healing and recovery. And so the message is pretty simple. You'll heal faster. You'll be, you'll calm basically the damage down. Because let's be honest, if you're not regenerating, you're degenerating. Okay. So right now, most people probably listening to this are degenerating if you're not doing something to build things back up on a regular basis. And so there's two that you'll hear about pretty often. One we call TB500, that's thymosin beta 4. Sound a little sciencey there. That one does a lot for inflammation in the body. And then another one, BPC 157, body protective compound. Basically, that one is the one that supports, we're going to talk a little bit more about that one in a minute, but certainly supports tendons, muscles, bones, ligaments. I mean, actually giving your body the resources it needs to help this stuff, matrix itself back together into a working joint or a working body part. So it's really great. When we put these two together, we actually call it the Wolverine stack. Now, I was not a big Marvel comic person, but understood there was some dude named Wolverine, and I think he could like grow stuff out of his, I don't know, hands or something. I don't know. He could regenerate. That was the point. I'm not telling you that's going to happen. You're going to grow things out of your knuckles. I think that's what the guy did. But that is why they call it the Wolverine stack. And so it's really great for injuries, sore muscles, strained tendons. It's really good for sports recovery. So all my pickleball fiends out there, super good for that. Really help people to bounce back, right? With, quicker, faster, get rid of some of those nagging injuries. And, and it can help with the old stuff too, like old injuries. Don't think that it's just a scenario for like the most recent and it works its way, backwards there. Bottom line is the neat thing about these, like when we work with stem cells, right? We are injecting them right directly into a joint. With this, it actually is free to go move about the body, right? And so it's likely that maybe one or two of you says, "Oh, I got this really bad knee." But there's a really good chance you have a messed up wrist somewhere along the way too, or an elbow or a shoulder, right? Because generally speaking, if you messed up one of the joints that bad, you probably messed up a few others as that joint was recovering, right? So the good thing about this is when you do start to work with some of these, if you decide to do that, it will actually go to all the joints that might need some inflammation support. And that's actually one of the reasons why it's recommended that you start on this for several months. I mean, actual recommendation is about 16 weeks. The reason is you've got to saturate the cells. You're 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. You've been like depleting those cells for a really long time. So what this is doing is it's got to rebuild them, and it's got to rebuild them. And with the injections, it helps to bypass that digestion problem that I mentioned earlier, that some people have. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Let me continue on with these. So pain and soreness, another great reason, and worth mentioning the BPC 157, the TB 500. Again, those can be used separate. We'll talk about that in a minute. But when we put them together, really nice, helping with swelling, less stiffness, help you move more freely. And so, it's really about when something hurts, this is going directly to helping relieve that as opposed to masking it. Like so many times where, maybe we go to our doctor and we have a joint issue. And what you need to know is that inflammation is the reason you have pain. So, big thing seems to be, at least when I hear it in the office, people are coming in, oh, I see my inflammation's up. And I'm thinking, does everybody know their inflammation's up all of a sudden? Well, they're doing that C-reactive protein test on your blood work. And now that's like the new buzzword, right? Well, inflammation's a big deal. So, if your inflammation is up because your doctor told you it was up on your blood work, just know that pain's probably coming close behind it, and vice versa. If you are in pain, you must know you have inflammation. Even if it didn't come up on your test or your doctor didn't tell you, you got it. They go hand in hand. You just can't have one without the other. So just something to think about, that what we're focusing on here is actually going to the root cause where the area is. The body is so amazing. It will take what it needs from these peptides and literally come in and start to, it'll take those peptides in where it needs it and start to reduce the inflammation, which is going to start to allow for healing to start happening. Now, let me talk a little bit about gut and stomach health. A little bit ago, I mentioned this BPC stands for body protective compound or body protection compound. What a lot of people don't actually realize is that this one is actually phenomenal for digestion issues, for gut health issues. So how do you know if you have a gut health issue? Okay, one of the greatest ways is that your doctor told you, hey, you got a gut issue. It could be you had a pain in the gut. It could be, let me give you my list. You have a digestion problem if you have belching, burping, gas, constipation, diarrhea, bloating, acid reflux, and that's, like 7. If you got any of that going on, you probably have some digestion problems and just are told by the commercials, it's normal. It's okay. There's a purple pill to fix that, right? But the reality is those are all signs that digestion is not working, that you don't have enough enzymes going on to help digest your foods. And maybe there's certain food changes. That's why when we make food changes at our office with people, a lot of their health issues start to go away because their body starts to absorb the building blocks of a cell: proteins, carbs, and fats. And what did I just tell you a little while ago was proteins? Amino acids, which are these peptides, right? Amino acids chained together makes these peptides. So important to know that this BPC is actually one of the things that we often use to support people having an improved digestive state. It's actually been used to heal ulcers. So if you're an ulcer kind of person, this is another one to think about. And one thing I've recently learned is that this is one of the few that can actually be recommended to take, orally, to support that digestive process. Okay, so now desire and intimacy. So one of the peptides we use for this is PT-141. What's neat about this one is that you need to understand that so much is happening in the brain. Like it's not all just the body parts, the brain's got like so much going on there. And so these neurotransmitters are super important. We have hormones. Many of you have heard of those. You think that it's only, in women, estrogen and progesterone. It's not true. Men's got them too. There's tons of them, testosterone. There's all kinds of hormones, and they're communicators. But then there's these neurotransmitters in the brain as well, and that's why I just take hormones and neurotransmitters and I put them all together and I just call them communicators, because it's just easier than saying the big long other words. So why is this important? You've got to get proper signaling, and sometimes the signaling up in the brain is off. And so actually that's what this particular peptide is working on, is that signaling from the brain. And so it's great. This one is good. It makes it easy as a practitioner, because this works for both men and women. But there's some other treatments that send some different messaging. We'll talk about that shortly. And so this one's nice because it can go, guy or girl, to help them out there. So let's talk about weight and energy. And bottom line is, the body has to be able to use energy, and it likes to get it, the fuel that we give the body, right? And sometimes our bodies do not know how to get that messaging done correctly. So many of you have probably heard of some peptides, but you didn't necessarily know they were peptides, but you might have heard something called like GLP, and that's like a big buzzword as well. And there's a few layers of those. So I want to talk about those for just a second. Um, because they do a lot of this same signaling we were talking about, signaling to the brain, hey, I'm actually satisfied, you know, leptin and ghrelin. So stop, those other hormones, stop telling me, I need more food. So they work up, that's more of that signaling going on. And so one of the things that maybe you've heard of something called semaglutide. Semaglutide is a GLP, and it works on one receptor site. So when we talk about a receptor site, right, there's different ones. Some talk about tell your body, "Hey, I'm not hungry anymore." Send that signal. Others say, "Hey, uh, I'm satisfied." Send that signal, right? And others work on, some of the blood sugar. Hormones or communicators. Hey, blood sugar's leveling out. Don't push me to have a carb. So I want more great, I have more sugar, so things ramp back up. So that semaglutide, it works on one of those receptor sites, like I just talked about. Then there's something called terzepatide. Maybe some of you have heard of that. Maybe you know some friends on it. That works on two different receptor sites. And so it's interesting. Obviously, then that one sounds like, oh, that one must be better because it works on two. Honestly, guys, every person's different, and you just can't assume that what worked for Sally is going to work for you. And we're going to talk more about that. You have a unique fingerprint, and don't ever forget that. You are not a one size fits all. Let me just throw this nutrition at you because the last 52 people that, or the last, let me throw this drug at you because the last 52 people that came in with the same problem must be the same as you. So we all put you on the same thing. Mm-mm. Very important that you get specialized help for what you need, specifically, because there are some side effects to, some of these peptides, particularly these, on the weight piece. And one of the things that happens is we often have some people, might get nausea. Some people might, their digestion may slow. Well, holy moly. I just got done talking about how bad digestion could already look. So the last thing you want is to slow it down more, right? That would be a very bad thing. Especially some people that have like bypasses done, some of those things for weight control, would be very, very bad idea to do some of these GLP products. Another thing that is not commonly known is the muscle loss problem that could come up with some of these as well. That's very, very important for you to understand. It is not highly advertised, but here's what I'm going to say. I am seeing a trend in the clinic where people coming in, maybe their spouse, like they're seeing me because they like some of the more natural approaches, but maybe their spouse is seeing another practitioner and they're working with one of these GLPs. And one of the things that I'm seeing as a trend is that those gentlemen in particular, again, it's usually the spouse, having a hard time getting off the floor after playing with the grandkids. Mm-hmm. And it's not just because of weight, it's because of muscle loss. Huge, guys, absolutely huge. And so where that's going, if I could just paint the timeline for you, if we don't stop that trend, the primary care doctors putting people on these and not helping people understand the necessity of having proteins in their picture, having good diets in their picture, having working with weights in their picture. Orthopedic surgeons on this other side, guess what they're saying? Oh, we can't do your surgery. There's not enough muscle. Whoa. That's a huge, huge, huge burden coming, guys. Hips, knees, whatever. If your spouse, is overweight, or if you're overweight, taking some of these GLPs, you must get some support on that muscle building side of things. So probably spent way too much time on this part, but I felt it was important. There are some other products that are coming out or already in use that do support muscle building, or should I say, don't cause muscle loss. That's something that you need to know. Again, stuff's always advancing with this, so great information coming out probably daily. So last one, let's talk about mood and stress. I'm going to keep this short on purpose, because this is some of the area that they know the least about. And boy, there's a lot of stress going on in our world. A lot of people, ever since we had that pandemic, right? A lot of anxiety issues that have surfaced out of that. So while they've got some peptides that do focus on mood and stress and calming, got to shoot straight, not as much research on those so far. But here's the deal. And I've seen good results with some of these other ones. And I'm always going to take it back to food, and let's go back to food for a second. And let me remind you of the little sciencey part I got to earlier in the presentation. Bottom line is peptides. Okay. They're amino acids chained together. Amino acids are proteins. Proteins are one of the three building blocks of a cell: proteins, carbs, and fats. So proteins are food, right? Beef, chicken, salmon, whatever, proteins. So I feel really good about where things are going with peptides overall, because in my mind, it's food. And it's helping somebody who maybe can't digest their food well right now move to a healthier space. So that's my 2 cents on this one. So let's do this reality check now. Let's talk about a few key things we should probably talk about out loud about this, so that we're all on the same page. And so first, you need to know some of these are not officially approved yet. And for instance, in our example, that PT 141, it's partially approved or partly approved. They have an approved version. It's called Velisi, and it's only for low desire in younger women. Darn, for the older ones, right? And it is definitely not for men, and it's not for boosting performance. So important to know that. And so just wanted to share that. But again, there's some other options. There's some other things that are available to support in that respect that we'll probably talk about in some future presentations. Next thing is the BPC 157, the healing for the gut. It's not actually approved for general use right now, and athletes can't use it, of course, like for competition and stuff like that. Again, I have seen some phenomenal support for people with the BPC 157. And then it's partner in crime when it comes to that Wolverine scenario, the TB 500, again, not approved at this time, also not allowed in competitive sports, but again, really phenomenal for reducing inflammation. So these are things that have been observed, but we've seen good results. But you need to understand, not officially approved at this time. So, but here's the key thing. Number 2, important matter for you to know. Quality matters. Made in the USA matters. Not every product out there is made the same way or held to the same standard. I remember working with I work with essential oils as well. And I remember being told, don't buy those off Amazon, even though it had the label. They had the little top on there, looked just like nothing, no seal was broken. Unfortunately, what was happening is they were taking, XYZ companies, great stuff, and, watering it down, so to speak, putting a new little top on it and selling it on Amazon. Careful with that. I cannot stress that enough. You really want to get peptides through a trusted source, not just some online gamble, because you're gambling with your body and what you're putting in your body. So another important thing, a lot of research is still early on these. So many of the studies behind them actually were done with animals, not necessarily human trials. Um, Again, I have seen them look pretty darn good. Um, I've seen good results on humans, just so you know. Um, so that doesn't make peptides worthless just because they've been, most of the research has been done on animals. But like I said earlier, remember peptides are amino acids chained together. That's proteins, building block of a cell, makes them, they're definitely essential. So when you buy peptides from an online vendor, you're not buying a product, you're buying a guess. Let's leave it at that. So there actually is no regulatory oversight for what you might be finding out there. No required testing. No licensed pharmacist is reviewing what's going into those vials. So what's on the label may not really match what's inside. That's what I was just telling you about, the essential oil case. So it's important that you are working with something that's not contaminated, not misdosed, or anything like that. So the main thing that you need to hear is that, most people don't say this. A peptide that isn't pure isn't just ineffective, it can be dangerous. So you're putting something into your body that will bypass your digestive system and go directly into your bloodstream. And so there's really zero margin for error in that respect. So peptides are super powerful. That's why they're so precise. And that precision disappears the moment that quality control disappears. So an online vendor, no matter how professional they might make their website look, they probably not a licensed compounding pharmacy. And so they aren't accountable to anybody in that respect. So the science behind peptides is real, the promise is real, but none of that matters if you're injecting something that isn't what it says it is. So the only version of peptide therapy that makes sense is one that's backed by a provider that understands what they're doing, sourced from a certified compounding pharmacy, and built around your specific health picture. Again, it's not just because Sally said it worked for her doesn't mean it's the right thing for you. And so you don't want to take a shortcut. So this is a very interesting field. So how do you get started the right way? That's key. So there's basically 3 steps. First, you want to work with a provider who actually knows this area, the peptide area, and not a forum or your friend's tip. Joe said, you need to go to someone who actually knows what they're talking about, not just guessing at what would be best for you. Besides, you might be buying the wrong thing. Maybe you don't need the whole Wolverine stack. Maybe you only need half of it, right? Just depends on you. You're unique. Number 2, get a plan made for your body, what your goals are, what your body, wants to do. It's not one size fits all. You have a unique fingerprint for a reason. You're unique. And so you've had different injuries, you've had different lifestyle, all that matters. And then number 3, pay attention to how your body responds, and adjust with that guidance over time. It's a partnership, right? Not a one-time purchase of something. So bottom line is, here's the thing. One of the things we do, because so many people are not very in tune with their body. And so I mean, it's bad actually how out of touch people are with their body. I think they're kind of numb these days. So one of the things that we like to do, we have a very detailed symptom survey, and we have people fill that out because basically I'm asking you more questions than you'd think to tell your mom about your body. But bottom line is. We have to know your baseline. You have to know where you're starting from. And sometimes we have to ask questions that you wouldn't think to ask. Like, you know, I know, a common scenario might be a wife who asks the husband something and he's like, I don't know, but the reality is sometimes your spouse sees more about your health condition or hears more of the grunt and groan when you get up off the chair, or hears you complaining about your stomach after you eat, right? Sometimes other people around us know us a little better than we know ourselves. So that's why we do this super detailed survey. And then really what we do is after people do any of our therapies, any of the things that we work with, basically they then retake it after a set amount of time so that the body and the cells have had enough time to saturate whatever we're saturating them with, whether it's food, nutrition plan, essential oils, red light, whatever. So very important that you have to understand how your body responds. And what you're going to do is after you do treatment, you go take the survey again and you'll start to see, wow, my body actually improved in all these areas. Because sometimes you just don't figure it out until after it's already happened. So bottom line is the takeaway I want you to leave with is that peptides are a tool. They're not a shortcut. They work best as part of a guided plan. So think of them as clear instructions for your body to heal the way it already knows to heal because it knows how to heal. You just have to give it the right stuff. And sometimes our food supply right now, we just can't give it the right stuff. How they're growing our crops and the soil, we just can't give it the right stuff. And that's part of what all this education is about. This isn't designed for you to be on forever. This is designed for you to, help yourself over that hurdle till you get your nutrition on track and things like that. So one of the things, we'll bring it home, comes back to one idea, giving your body clear instructions. And the best thing you can do is just to keep asking really good questions. And that's what we're getting ready to do here in a second. And if you'd like to go further, maybe you don't want to ask questions on this call because maybe they're kind of private. Just feel free to jot down our number, our website, reach out to us. We'd be happy to do a consultation with you to kind of help point you in the right direction. And I do just want to, close with just making sure that, everybody understands that, what I'm here today to do is to just inform you and give you information that you can use maybe for yourself or maybe for a loved one. But nothing here is meant to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any condition from happening. Peptides are just a guide. And that's that's how we view it. And we're here to guide you on that journey. So I think what I'll do is I'll take a moment. I'll go back to this slide for a second, and then open it up for any questions. Anybody got any questions? You can just feel free to unmute yourself and speak up.